Thank you. And thank you all for being here. I know some of you are coming in and signing in, get your name badge and your folders. We have the honor of having Dr. Reverend Roy Lee today. He is from the Archdiocese of Atlanta. And I've had an opportunity to see him in several venues, so I'm excited to have him here to bring the vision. We decided to focus on the trilogy around the Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King weekend is this weekend, as everyone knows. Also, the focus in on the National Black Catholic Congress vision, and also to look at, this is the 40th anniversary of what we have seen and what we have heard. So I hope that everyone has had an opportunity to read over that our Black bishops brought forward at the USCCB. So it's very important that we are familiar with where our Catholicism as it relates to the United States, what the Black bishops are sharing with us, and our vision moving forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Father Lee.
We are in a precarious moment right now that I thought I would never live to see. But we are in for the time of our life right now. And we need prayer and Jesus like we have never needed before. Now, we've been through some stuff before. Y'all know that. But I'm thinking about your children and your children's children. I'm looking at the next 2 or 3 generations. And what are we leaving behind? And they're gonna face some really. I thought my mama and grandmama, they were sharecroppers. They lived during the Jim Crow and civil rights movement. Many of us thought, okay, that's behind us. Hello? Anybody home? We got work to do. But see, in spite of it, these are exciting times because we can no longer sit on the fence. You're either going to stand for something or you're going to fall for anything. So we're standing on the promises of Jesus because he's still on the main line. Jesus on the main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus on the main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus on the main line. Tell him what you want. You gotta call him up. Call him up and tell him what you want. Call him up. Call him up. Call him up. Tell him what you want. So today, as we gather, we remember, I just couldn't have a photo just by himself, y'all. Because behind every great man, there's a great woman. Oh! And she's buried right next to him in Atlanta. And every time I go by there, I just have a moment. And there is a Catholic church right across the street. There's Ebenezer. And then right around the corner is the Catholic church called Our Lady of Lourdes, founded by Mother Catherine Drexel. Y'all know about Mother Catherine Drexel? She loved her some black folks, some people of color. And she founded what? She founded the first and only in the Western Hemisphere university, HBCU. In New I'm a alumni. You too. Xavier. Hello.
Another Xavier Wright over there.
And another Xavier Wright. And then there's Our Lady of Lourdes there. Every time I say Mass there, because they asked me to come in periodically to say Mass at Our Lady of Lourdes, Martin Luther King's house is right there, right around the corner of Our Lady of Lourdes. So he had the influence, of course, He was very Catholic. As much as y'all say he was a Baptist, he was very Catholic. And when I say Mass, we have a moment in our Eucharistic prayers. Y'all know this because y'all go to Mass all the time. Y'all some holy folks. Y'all some holy people. And so we have a moment we pray for the dead. Y'all remember that? His vision. Y'all got to put on the eyeglasses of faith. Now, y'all got to understand, because everybody doesn't have the same... let me just catch myself a minute. Not everybody's got the same vision. But he had the vision and the eyeglasses of whom? Jesus! He was a Christian. So he not only talked the talk, he walked the walk. So y'all got to understand what this thing called faith is. How y'all spell it? I got it up there. We don't even have to use spell check. Hello. F-A-I-T-H. Come on and tell somebody. F, finding Jesus. A, accepting Jesus. I, identifying with Jesus. T, trusting. The K, the stench. And then he didn't just say Lazarus. He didn't just say Lazarus, come on, Lazarus. He said, Lazarus! He called his name out. And all of a sudden, folks was all this time around and said, why he calling this big dick? What are you going to do? Y'all don't know. Do you know who you're in the presence of? And all of a sudden, y'all know the rest of the story. He came out about it. And all the folks, OMG! In a moment, some were crying, some were praising God, some were running and were scared, some were speaking in tongues. That's why I said we got to call him up. And y'all got to call his name out. Jesus. He called out Lazarus. And look what happened. And then Jesus, this is the beauty, when he came and stood eye to eye with Jesus, he said, untie him and let him go free. See, this is why I said we're living in some very crucial moment, because folks they still want to bind us up. Paul, Jesus said, untie him and let him go free. So let's move on here. So welcome to the celebration of life. President Reagan, who eventually signed the bill back in 1983. Some of y'all weren't born back in 1983. I know that young man back there. Some of y'all were not born back in 1983. But President Reagan said he signed the bill in 1983, and it was not official until 1986. And so, why Martin Luther King? Why do we have this moment, y'all? Why do we have this moment? We celebrate this moment to commemorate the life and the work of this man who was a Baptist minister. And he was a prominent leader in the civil rights movement. And he was an advocate for racial equality, nonviolence, and social change through his writing, his speeches, his marches, his activism. This day is also a day of service that encourages people to volunteer to improve our communities. Don't our communities need it?
Yes. Amen.
I go back into I'm just going to be honest because I'm transparent. See, when you get to be a certain age, because my granny, I used to think my granny, I said, that came out my granny's mouth. I can't believe she shit. But now I get it. Because when you get a certain age, what comes up, comes out. And if you want to fire me, go ahead and fire me. That's what I call freedom. That's a freedom y'all got. We got now. And some people don't like me because of that. But I said, that's okay. I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody. Y'all better make some noise for Jesus. And so here we are. So the civil rights movement, see, let's face it, many of us lived through this. Our parents lived through it. Our grandparents lived through it. Human beings need certain things like physical survival and what we call food and water and shelter. And beyond that, however, we also deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. Now, if y'all really want to get to, because there's a march on, you know, there's a pro-life. We're pro-life people, right? Right. But we're just not pro-life in the womb. From the womb to the tomb. We got to protect the life there. Hello. But when it comes out, we're the church. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due because I'm proud of our church. We're the largest, the Catholic Church is the largest less charitable institution in the world. We are. We're the large. So you got Catholic Social Services. You got St. Vincent de Paul. We got, because I'm just gonna keep it real. Cause I told you I'm church man. In Atlanta, got these mega churches, and I'm not gonna put down these mega churches, but I'm just saying this. Many times when some of their parishioners have hit rock bottom financially, I'm talking about, they go to their church and say, you know, I'm having difficulty paying my rent, doing this, blah, 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 I'm keeping water and lights on, blah, 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 can you help me? And they give them a little counseling session. Oh, that's wonderful. Let's go get some counseling. But the counselor ain't gonna pay the bills. And ain't gonna put food on the table. And they give them a sheet. Now, I'm not just telling you what I heard, I'm telling you what I know. And the sheet has many Catholic agencies and churches where they can go and get assistance. Oh, y'all hear what I'm saying?
Yes.
And then they're going to go back there and see, one of the things I tell folks when they're looking and they're kind of searching for a church, I said, one of the things we got to look for is how do they take care of the poor? How? And I'm not saying just your own, but see, this is the beauty of the Catholic Church. They don't come up here and say, well, what denomination are you? Wait a minute, what? Because you're a human being made in the image and likeness of God. The church steps up to the plate because we know Jesus. Now, we're not always perfect at what we do. Y'all know that in the Catholic Church. Oh, hello, we got a lot of work to do in the Catholic Church. Oh. But yet, I have to give credit where credit is due. So the basic human rights should be protected by the rule of law, and all members of human life are granted these equal and inalienable rights, which from the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world, much like the United States Declaration of Independence. This is a great country. I've been in the military. I've been all over the world. I had some wonderful experiences. But I said, this is the greatest country in the world. But it has this, it ain't perfect country. Y'all know that. And I'm saying today, we are living in a time when our democracy is on the line. And we're going to talk about, because he was part of the Voting Rights Act, we got to get these young people how to vote. How to use this God-given right of going to the polls and voting. So important. And so here we are. So all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with the reason, conscience, and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood. See, this is the question I always pose, church. And if you don't, then get out the way. Do you love black people? I'm just going to keep it real simple. Because if you really love black people, there's a way you're going to treat us. And if you don't love us, okay, I get it. Get out the way. Y'all know there's a song, get out the way, get out the way. I want to play that song, get out the way. Then let those who love black people do their work. Okay? So, and it's a simple, I'm going to talk more about this because as I've grown in my spirituality, physically, psychologically, emotionally, the bottom line is what King was talking about. It's called love. And y'all know everybody ain't going to love you and me for all kinds of reasons. Maybe your mouth is too big. Huh? Maybe your color ain't right to them. Huh? Maybe the education ain't right. Maybe your subject doesn't agree with the verb, huh? There's always something. Maybe you got impediment. Maybe you got an impediment. Maybe you just don't walk right. You know, we all make judgments calls, and then we want to kind of like, I don't want them in my space. Nah. But see, do we really love each other? Then why do we put all these labels? And it comes from what? Society. White, this whole white thing, that's a social construct.
Hallelujah.
That's a social construct. And so we have to be able to distinguish what's from God, what's of man. Okay? So here we go. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, politics, or other opinions, national or social origins, property, birth, or other statutes. So here we are. Furthermore, no distinction should be made on the basis of a political jurisdiction, international status, or the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or under any other limitations of sovereignty. Wow, that's a mouthful. And so here we are. Everyone has a right to life, liberty, security, and security of a person. Everybody. No one should be held in slavery or servitude. Did y'all hear me? Slavery and the slave trade should be what? Prohibited in all forms. And no one should be subject to torture or cruel, inhumane, or aren't we dealing with this thing of the border thing? Oh my God. It's chaotic. Okay? But they're still human beings. The whole war going on with Israel. Our Muslims and Jewish brothers and sisters, we can't take sides. They're all human beings. And so we are called as a Christian people to preserve life from the womb to the tomb. Not because someone's Jewish, or so we have to make a distinction, which we're going to say this group of people and not this group of people. That's inhumane. That's not of God. Everyone has the right to recognition, everyone as a person before the law. Okay? So all are equal before the law, and all are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. So it was just, now, we evolved the Declaration of Independence. Were we even thought of in that Declaration of Independence? But now, we're not just 3/4 of a human being. Wait a minute. We are full human beings. And just because someone may not have the education, or the color of the skin, or the economic, they're still a human being. Okay? And so, why celebrate? Because these rights in the United States have kept, we need to make sure they keep their promise. Here we go. Okay.
4 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long my poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the whole of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, my country tears of thee. Sweet land mountainside. Let freedom ring. If America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside. When we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty.
I still get emotional when I hear it. Wow, and I've heard it 100 times, if not more. Whew, I got to decompress for a moment. Wow. Freedom. Freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Y'all have a pad and paper, pen. I just want y'all to talk. We're going to just write just little notes. What does this speech mean to you today? Just for a moment. No dissertation. Just some cliff notes or bullet points. When you hear it again, I just told you I always have an emotional moment. I got to hold it back for a moment. Because it resonates so real. Even has the needle changed much? Has the needle changed much?
60, 70 years ago, mental illness, people of color, mass incarceration, gun violence, drugs. I mean, the list, it just breaks my heart. We have work to do, and it can't be one person, it can't just be king, it's got to be a village. And then I hear the stories. I hear the stories of my people. Many of us can go home back to a nice shelter with heat, food in the refrigerator, could take a shower every day. But a whole lot of our people don't live like that. From pillar to post, trying to steal from Peter to pay Paul. And so here we are today. Okay, let's just listen to some of your bullet points. When you heard this speech, now remember, Dr. King gave over 2,500 public speeches during his lifetime. He gave 2,500 speeches during his lifetime. He was a Morehouse graduate. He entered college at the age of 15. He was arrested 29 times. He survived an assassination attempt a decade before his death. He knew it was coming. And so, let's hear who wants to share nice and loud, because my cord doesn't stretch that far. So y'all have to speak nice and loud. If you want to come up to the mic, that's fine too. One of the things when I'm out there with the homeless, I have like 98, almost 100 volunteers from various Catholic churches in Atlanta. It's wonderful. And my people give me, just wonderful contributions when it comes to furniture and food and clothes, and just wonderful. I'm just so grateful. This is because it's God's work. But then some of my volunteers come up when we go in the area and they say, Father Lee, how many can they get? Father Lee, what's the restrictions on this and that and that? And I just said, you know what? Our people get enough restrictions dumped on them. Every time I go out, I make sure they have Christmas. June, July, August, September, October, November, December. I make sure they have Christmas. When I go out to all these depressed areas, I make sure they experience Christmas. Okay? That's what we call love, y'all. And so that's what we got to pump back into our communities because love has been kind of sucked out of our community because we have turned over I'm just thinking about the ancestors, on how much they loved the Lord, y'all. What they went through in the Jim Crow and the civil rights and slavery, they loved the Lord. They still had the African spirit in them. Just because, we were enslaved and they didn't root that out. That's in our DNA. And that's why I said we got to get back to our history. We always want to start history with slavery. Oh, no. We got to start history with Africa. Because of the great queens and kings and the intellectuals that came out of Africa. We are an African people. We got to understand the genius. Our folks are genius. We're going to celebrate Black History Month next month. And when I read the inventions that we have never been acknowledged, just the little things, the ironing board, the stop sign, and blood transfusions, and the list goes, doorknobs, and all these Black folks went, and we never got any kind of recognition. And we still talking, we're trying to talk about reparations. So I said, whoo, that's a whole nother Oprah show. But yeah, here we are. So what's your little snippet in terms of, nice and loud?
No, Stephanie, when I hear that speech, it makes me feel like the invitation to humanity. It's an invitation to humanity. We all have a part in making the world the place we want it to be.
I like that. An invitation. Thank you for that. Who's taking notes? Where's my note taker? Jennifer, where you at?
I'm over here.
Okay, you got me my note taker. I didn't give you that honorary doctorate degree for nothing. Oh! You got to work for it. Oh! She said an invitation to humanity, Jennifer. Wow. Yes, ma'am. What's your name?
Ava.
Ava.
I thought about the journey that we're on and that our ancestors pushed us. They were resilient. They made a way out of no way. But how far have we taken that mantle? And one thing you were talking about, one of the family homeless shelters that Holy Cross serves, how little it takes to convey love. We met a woman who had been a chef, but on our last trip there, and she was in a car accident, and she's unable to stand on her feet again. She has been in the shelter for a year, trying to work her way out. But the story of it is, when we go, Holy Cross, we always put tablecloths on the table, and we don't serve sandwiches. We serve them good old home-cooked food. And she said, you all are the only people who come in here and treat us like family. So it only takes a little to spread that love.
And both of you talk about invitation, how our ancestors had the ingenuity, the tenacity and perseverance, and then speak about love. That's part of evangelization.
Absolutely.
That's part of evangelization, yes.
Well, when I hear that speech, and I've heard lots of King's speeches, what I'm struck by, even though I understand the content, but it's the rhetorical beauty of it. It's the semantic symmetry. It's all of that wonderful imagery which is so evocative. And it just reminds me of the poets and the activists and fighters and the genius of letters that we have and how their words galvanize us. So we read poetry, we look at the dances, we look at the graphic artists, we listen to the jazz artists, and we know that we are a people of brilliance. And that speech is, I used to analyze it or have my students, look at that speech. And the other one which isn't a speech, but the letter from Birmingham
Letter
jail,
from Birmingham.
which is a
A
rhetorical
rhetorical piece.
gem, you know, and so that's what resonates with me, you know.
That's so wonderful because that's African.
Yeah.
We need to also identify and help our students understand the genius of Africa, and it's in us. That DNA is in us. And like you said, I like to use divine imagination. That's what she's talking about. She's talking about, and Jesus used divine imagination all the time. And some of the people didn't get it. And this is what happens here. He's using divine, he entered into that space, I say, that mystery, which is God wants us to use that divine imagination. That's poetic.
That's it.
It's beautiful. And our people got it. Yes.
So there's a strategy that we use in schools when we are reading text, informational text, and we call it talk to the text.
Yeah.
And so you read the text and then you have to describe how that text moved you.
Yes.
Or what did you get from it? What did you learn from it? What was the aha moment? And so for me, when I listen to that text, there are three things that come to mind. I can put it under the umbrella of gratitude. Gratitude for what ancestors had to go through, so that I can have three things today. So that I can have freedom, so that I can have peace, and so that I can have justice. Those were the three things when I talk to that text.
Ooh, thank you for that. And let us remember that, that he said it so well, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. You use the word peace. We have to understand what peace is. It's not merely the absence of tension. It is the presence of justice. So important. And this is the other thing. We have to have double consciousness. Let me help you understand what double consciousness is. We are in America. In order to succeed and excel in this country, we've got to know the dominant language and white intellectual ingenuities, the intricacies that go with that. But do not delete, I have to say this again, do not delete the genius of our own language, our own songs, our own culture that brings in theology, black spirituality, not only dance and food, but politics and all these things. We have to have a double consciousness so we can appreciate we are both and people. But one of the things that happen when sometimes we kind of get more dominant in one, we neglect the other. And that's why some people say, oh, he's just a sellout. Or, or he talks white. Or we got to know how to do it when we are in the space with each other. That's why I'm loving this space, because this is, for me, it's like a hush harbor. Y'all know what that means, right? That's what it means. It's like a hush harbor. One of my favorite, Harriet Tubman did it well. She did it well. She knew everybody wasn't going to try to get to, they still wanted a roof over their head, 3 square miles. She said, well, you can't go with Harriet then. Because there's a sacrifice that we have to make. Okay, one more, maybe 2 more. Anybody else before we move on? Yes, ma'am.
When I heard that just now, which I've heard 150 times, I remember I was a teenager watching it, and on TV, I heard the love of God coming through this at the time, he was 34 years old.
That's right.
A 34-year-old man who let the love of God come through him, who let himself be used.
Yes, thank you.
And who was murdered 5 years later. I think of gratitude, as the Lord said, because he never got to see his kids become teenagers, go to the prom, learn to drive, have their kids. He never got to hold his grandbabies. And all of that was a sacrifice of love, and I'm very grateful.
Amen. Thank you for that. The double consciousness, y'all know where that came from. It's not Father Lee. W-E-B. Okay. So important that we understand that. Moving right along. Then we have a walk down Mother Africa, the memory lane. We have to take a walk down memory lane, y'all. I mentioned Mother Africa, I mentioned the Middle Passage, slavery, in terms of Jim Crow segregation, and where we are today. we are in a time of a time that makes me pause. Again, I keep repeating myself because I am just enamored by the fact that this country is so polarized and divided. And this man came along to try to bring a language of unity. But we also know that when we try to use the language of unification, then we also know that we bring in our humanness sometimes in that space. And sometimes when we bring ourselves in that space, we got to really take a good look at ourselves in that space to figure out now who's the oppressor and who's the oppressor here. And then we have to figure out then how can we make this thing work, okay? Breaking down barriers of racial justice is a huge piece because COVID-19, and I see some of you with the mask on, this thing is not over yet.
No.
And I had it like 3-4 times. And because we're always around people. And we still want to hug, we want to kiss, they want to do this, and we're in small spaces sometimes, and even though I've been boosted 5, 6 times, I still come down with it. And it has it's done something to my immune system. And I've had like 4 family members die during this pandemic. So we talk about this pandemic has had an opportunity and an impact on racial and ethnic minorities, primarily our Black and Hispanic brothers and sisters and Native Americans. So we have the serious illness and death from the disease. We lost over 1 million people. Who was in charge? I ain't gonna say, I'm moving on, come on, y'all. Okay. Then we have the conversation I mentioned about poverty and inequality. I've come to realize, y'all, when people live in abject poverty, it has a profound effect on their mental illness. It has a profound effect on their psychology, their psyche. And then we wonder why crazy is the norm today. We're there in that space. Okay? See, when we were growing up, we grew up, as soon as we left the house after 18, 19, 20 years old, we had to figure out how to live. Go to college, I had to work a couple jobs, pay my way through college. My mom and dad didn't have that kind of money to save up. So we learned that early. Now, this generation grows up like at 40-something. And then y'all better have a finished basement because they may be coming back. Oh, they may be coming back on the live. Oh, it's a different generation today because look at technology. This is the ruler of their lives. And so social media, we are in it, and I know most of y'all ain't on that. See, folks our age, they're usually still on Facebook. Y'all still, young folks ain't on Facebook. They're TikTok. It's a TikTok culture. And you look at some of that TikTok stuff, you say, oh, boy, that's what we are. So we have to understand the power of social media dictates, for the most part, rules for the most part, and can tell you who's going to be the next president. That's the power of social media. Because we know a whole lot of that stuff. Now we talk about, is everything on social media true? Y'all better get ready for AI. Because this thing is really going to take us for a swing, huh? Artificial intelligence. A huge piece now. And they can put your face up there. They know that you ever get those phone calls that's hello? Hello? Hello again? And it's almost like they're taping your voice. Because they can put your voice, they can put your face up there and use the voice that they're accustomed to hearing, and they could use it. They could use it. They could mimic it. That's the power of this culture we're in. Okay? As I told you, in my jail ministry, looking at the criminal legal system today, we talked about the George Floyds, Breonna Taylor. The list goes on. And we said, where's the voice of our community? Black lives matter, and then white lives matter too. Well, we know that. It's always mattered. And we're missing the point. Which house is being burnt down? So, when we talk about the legal system, the mass incarceration, it's huge. And when I go into the jail system, the majority of the people are brown and black-skinned people. And I'm saying, what's going on with the legal system? And when I talk to my white counterparts and they tell me about their kids being locked up, and I say, what did you do? You let them sit in jail? Oh, no. They got the money. They get out of jail just like that. Many of us don't have the resources like that. Okay? And so, we keep talking about moving on. Black people report being subject to many forms of, we know this, police brutality. And when I have to go way out of Atlanta to say masses and do stuff way out, take me about an hour and a half, 2 hours, I try to get home before the sun goes down. I'm telling the truth. Because one time the sun had gone down, I was way out, and I was driving, I was taking my time, because I said, I'm taking my time. I was by myself with my angels, and all of a sudden behind me, these swirling blue lights come on. I'm by myself, and I'm in this area that's no street lights, and I pulled my collar on, and I make sure I had the dash light. I had Virgin Mary sitting on my dashboard. I put that flashlight right there on that Blessed Virgin Mary. So when he came by, I turned that light on and I stuck my head on so you can see my collar. Yes, sir. I mean, that's the consciousness we have now. When I'm by myself in some wooded area, that's the first thing that popped in my mind. Am I safe? Am I safe? And now you've got to teach your grandchildren how to do it. Because if they say the wrong thing and do the wrong thing, it could be over. Snap of a finger. It can be that's the kind of life we're in. Okay? So here we are. Approximately 2.3 million people were locked up on any given day in 2020. And there are about 10 million admissions into jail each year, based on the 2017 and 18 data. 4.4% of the U.S. adult populations were on probation or parole. Here we go. Now, while their relative incarceration rates have declined steadily over the past decade, black people, brown-skinned people, tend to a lesser extent in terms of our Hispanic brothers and sisters, okay? The youth of color, now this is another piece. Children in the criminal and juvenile justice system is huge. What happened to the family? What happened to the village? What happened to the community? Youth of color make up approximately 1/3 of the teenagers under 18, but 2/3 of incarcerated youth in the United States. Drugs, huge piece again. Okay? So black people were 3.64 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than white people. Health and human rights, okay? The rates of people without health insurance is huge in our community. So in Atlanta, we have one hospital that, well, all hospitals got to take them, but there's one that caters to those without any type of, and it's Grady Hospital, okay? And so the voting rights, as I talked about before, we got to use this great gift. And I know, you know, the whole thing about now you got to show an ID. Okay, we get it, show your ID. But then we got to maneuver, because back in the day, they had to count how many marbles were in the jar. You remember that? Okay. The right to education is another huge piece. I wrote my dissertation on middle school African American males, goals, career aspirations, and high school retention factors, because it's in middle school that the transition happens for most kids, black kids, kids of color, in terms of success rate. You know, are they going to be prepared? First of all, are they going to be consistent in going on to high school? And then after that, how many are going to go to college? Now, I'm fortunate to live in Atlanta and be in that, what we call Atlanta, we call it the Atlanta Center in terms of Morehouse and Clark Atlanta and Spelman, and we have the HBCUs, and I'm just so proud. We don't see the TV cameras going there and looking at all these kids and seeing them graduate, but it's so good. It's a beacon of hope for me. It's a beacon of hope, because many times we see all the trouble from the drugs and the guns and all, but there's also another side to this. of our people, and you encouraging your grandkids in terms of going on to college and education. Okay, so important. But even if you have the degree, let's just be real about it. I've been there. You can have all the degrees in the world. If your color is not according to their standard, y'all know what we have to go through. Did y'all just read the article? I sent it to Jennifer, Lincoln University, of this African American woman. Did y'all read it?
Student Affairs Director.
Yeah, say that again.
The Director of Student Affairs committed suicide.
African American, and her boss was white, and she couldn't take. What happened to her? Why did they said she did it?
They said it was bullying. Bullying and harassment from her boss, and now they're calling for his immediate resignation.
Absolutely. I said, this happens to us all the time. The depression, the bullying, intimidation. Beautiful African American woman. And he was going to ruin and tarnish her name. She couldn't take the pressure. She committed suicide. I said, we can't let this death go in vain. We got to talk about it, because we, for the most part, experience this every day in the corporate world. I experienced it in the Catholic Church. I experienced it in the military. It's systemic. Okay? It's everywhere. Women's and girls' rights. It's another topic of conversation. My mother's up there in age. Dad is already on the glory. But my mother, thank God she's got her kids. We take good care of her. Her mind is still good, and she was an exercise buff for 60 years of her life, and she said it's paying off. But how many of our older people, more than 40% of the state reported COVID-19 deaths in the United States, but just 8% of total cases were among people living in long-term care institutions like nursing homes and other facilities. Wow. Our caretakers, how do we take care of our parents? Because one day, we're going to get old, y'all. And that's why I'm good to my nephews and nieces. I buy tennis shoes, I buy all kind of stuff. Because I say, when I get old, I'm going to remind them, you know what I did for you when I was on my feet? Now you on your feet, you got to do for me. Hello? Yes. This is all tied in. This is why I said Martin Luther King was very Catholic. This all tied into Catholic social teachings. Do y'all know what Catholic social teachings is? Here it is. The life and the dignity of the human person. Solidarity. The care for God's creation. The call for family and community and participation. He encompassed all of this. The option for the poor. He talked about vulnerable rights and responsibilities, the dignity of work and the rights of workers, life and dignity of the human person. He captured all of this. He was very Catholic in his teaching. Kwanzaa, we just finished, but Kwanzaa, I don't know how many of you are celebrating. I still celebrate it. It's so important because in many ways, here it is. It's very Catholic. And so, and it just breaks my heart because I got to pause, I got to find the right words. Because one of the predominantly African-American parishes in Atlanta, one of the white pastors said, we can't celebrate Kwanzaa because it's not religious, it's not spiritual. I said, here we go again. We got to have this conversation. So what is Kwanzaa? When we talk about, Kwanzaa, and is unity, Kujijangalia, self-determination, Ujima, collective work and responsibility, Ujama, cooperative economics, Nia, purpose, and Kumba, creativity, and Imani, faith. It should not just be celebrated right after Christmas. We should be celebrating this. You know what I see our black people doing? They're out there sweeping the floor or the ground. My heart just breaks. We've been here for 400 years. What happened to economic empowerment? Gentrification is happening. That's a huge piece all over the country. Some of these elderly people have been there 60, 70 years and they no longer can pay the property taxes. And they got to move out. Wow, they're dispersed. Okay? So let us write the vision. How many of you went to the Congress last year? Anybody? Good. Thank you. Here, let's write the vision. Make it plain upon the tablets the vision is a witness for the appointed time it should be. So what is the vision? I think King captured the vision. I think the Congress is trying, and we still are talking the after effects, the post-Congress. I'm on the committee with Bishop Perry from Chicago. He's retired now. I was on the evangelization piece, and I gave a talk on evangelization. How are you going to capture the vision in your parish, in your diocese right now? How are you doing it? How are you talking to each other? How are you talking to the powers to be, the bishop, those who's in charge for the office for multicultural or black ministry or whatever you call it? How are we in communion with them? How are we working this? We can't just wait every 5 years to meet and then nobody's doing nothing between the 5 years. Then why are we meeting? One of the things I'm beginning to experience, many of us don't want to do the serious work. I know some of you got to get a paycheck. I get it. But how many of us are going to really make the ultimate sacrifice? When I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was in prison, did you come to visit me? When I was a stranger, did you make me feel welcome? Whatever you did to the least of my sisters and brothers, you did to Jesus. Somebody's calling your name. The Black Catholic Congress. Its mission is to improve and enrich the lives of African American Catholics, operating in close cooperation in coordination with the black bishops. Back then, how many black bishops we have active right now, African American? Yeah, y'all better say, When what we have seen and heard was written, we had 10. We have like 4 active right now, because Bishop Perry from Chicago just retired. And we lost Bishop Ferd out of New Orleans. And we got to stop talking about the bishop so much. We got to talk about this is the time for the laity. Y'all got to step up to the plate. Y'all got to get formatted, and y'all got to do the work. Now, stop depending on the priests and the nuns and the deacons. No, you got to do the work. But you got to be formed intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. You got to know how this thing works in the church. Because the church is no different from the military and corporate world. Y'all got to know how that politics work. Y'all got to work it. That's what I love about AA. AA said you got to work. You got to work it in order for it to work for you. You got to put in the work. So the vision, where will the African American Catholic Church be in 20 years? This is just a question. Where we going to be 20 years from now, y'all? 25 years from now? Where we going to be? Who's going to pass on? What about the lay people, lay Catholics? I'm afraid. I think the vision, we saw it a long time ago, the closing of our schools, our churches, and our offices, and the dwindling, the black bishops and priests you're talking about. And I have a moment, I get scared. I say, where are we going to be 20, 25 years from now? Where are the young people? They're not trying to knock down the door to get into the Catholic Church. What is it that we're not doing why aren't they attracted to this church? But they're going to go over to this church and that church. We need to go visit over these other churches and see what they're doing. Okay? So the vision, the pastoral letter of evangelization from the black bishops in the United States was written back in September 9th. That's the Feast of St. Peter Claver. We're celebrating it now. I want y'all to read that document. It's powerful. The language is heavy-duty language. I love the because I laugh because the pastoral letter just came out a few years ago by the folks, the bishops here. It's really lightweight verbiage, flowery, very flowery, and kumbaya-ish. This thing here, they didn't hold back. The vocabulary they use, heavy-duty vocabulary. I love it. Okay? So if y'all get a chance, please read, because we're celebrating 40 years. And then, how are we going to implement it? How's the vision going to live on in your particular parishes or in the archdiocese or in your diocese? The future saints. Here they are. Tolton. Here they are, y'all. Pierre Toussaint. Who's the other one? Venerable Harriet DeLille. The servant of God, Mary Lang and Julie Greeley. And Sister Thea Bowman taught me when I was at Xavier for the Institute for Black Catholic Studies. Oh my God. I was sitting in the classroom but we all should realize we're sitting right now. Y'all sitting among some saints. I had no idea, Sister Thea, because Sister Thea didn't play in the class. Let me just tell you, she didn't play. That nothing was in her. She did not play. She expected excellence. She expected excellence and nothing less than that. She didn't. And she didn't play with us. And she would call me in because I was young and dumb. You know, you're young and dumb sometimes. She would come in and she would sit me down. She said, "Now, I'm going to tell you something." She told me, I just shut it up. She was giving me some advice. Okay? And so we got to sit our grandkids down and y'all got to talk to them because they got a lot of distractions going on. Clarence Rivers, have y'all heard about him before? We're celebrating 40 years with him. This man, he was, we used his, I don't think it's still in print, but we used his, I think I brought it with me. Yeah, I did. Back at Xavier, at the Institute for Black Catholic Studies. In the Spirit in Worship, Clarence Rivers, he wrote this. And he was a pioneer. He was, and talked about enculturation. He was huge, and now we're beginning to use it, celebrating the 40th, his 40th, I think it did for 40 years, I think now. We're beginning to play his music, to resurrect his music, okay? The Institute for Black Catholic Studies. Y'all need to look it up. I brought some brochures. Now, there are two programs. And the two programs, one, I know many of us can't get away for 3 weeks, but that's the master's degree in African American Catholic Studies. The other one is 1 week. That's a certificate program. Y'all need to come at least for 1 week just to get a taste. Be talking about being able to amalgamate or enculturate the African and African American stuff. It's powerful. Dr. Balo, she is the director. Excellent director, okay? Y'all can go online. It's all online as well, okay? If y'all could just spare 1 week, that would be wonderful, okay? 1 week. 1 week at the Institute, okay? Now, what is the Institute? Now, if you open up the brochure, week 1, week 2, week